question, does God exist, is of course one of the biggest questions, one of the big questions of philosophy, one of the big questions of life, in fact. It would seem that nothing is more important to know than whether or not there's a God. It has huge implications for morality, for our intellectual inquiries, for belief in the existence of a soul, life after death, possibility of miracles, the possibility that a claim to revelation is true. Once you accept the existence of God, everything changes, everything shifts. So it's obviously an important thing to know whether or not there's a God. The Catholic Church has always taught that it's possible to know that God exists on the basis of reason alone. Reason here we're going to use in a very broad sense. It's not just logic, but it also includes other things that we know, really what we come to philosophy with. Truths of common sense, our experience, our basic experience of the world around us, all of that is part of reason, what reason brings to the table in a way. Reason is the philosopher's only tool, I'm afraid. This is what we use to address the big questions. It might seem kind of feeble, but in a way, it's the only one we have. What else do we have to use except our own minds in trying to answer a question of this magnitude? You might say, well, there's other sources of knowledge as well, and maybe we should turn to one of those. And we'll talk about that in just a moment. I really liked it when Pope John Paul II, the late Pope John Paul II, talked about, I think in his work on the nature of human work, the importance of human work, talked about scholars having an intellectual toolbox that they bring with them. For the first time, I felt like I was actually doing something. Not just thinking and writing, but actually bringing some tools to the table. My kids used to come on Bring Your Child to Work Day, and they would say, later in their class, have to report, what does your mom do? What does your dad do? And it wasn't very exciting. They think. They sit around and think about things, and then they talk about them. So it didn't sound impressive, I think, to them. But these are the tools with which philosophy approaches the questions. It's just what we start with, our minds and our natural reason. Philosophy restricts itself to reason in part because it's worth knowing what we can find out about the world using just our minds, using our natural powers of thinking. But reason is, of course, a finite instrument. We can go wrong in our reasoning. We often do. That doesn't mean that we should switch to something else necessarily, because as I say, what else do we have? But we are going to make some false starts, so it has its limitation. I said that the Catholic Church has always taught that it's possible to know the existence of God on the basis of reason alone. How is that possible, or why does the Church teach that?